a gathering of world leaders and the rich and the powerful. No, we're not talking about Tay-Tay's wedding. We're talking about the NATO alliance in Ankara today on the Foreign Report. Let's do it. Welcome back to the Foreign Report. I'm Seena Ghaznavi, Travis Irvine in the virtual studio. This is your weekly foreign policy show that gives you gory details on geopolitics with hopefully, I don't know, exasperated sighs and maybe some chuckles and maybe some heavy breathing, but not in like a real, sexy way, but like in a weird, tired way and like you haven't slept a lot. That's the kind of way. Sign up for the newsletter, foreignreportshow.com. You know what? Also rate us on the podcast platforms. That if you want to help us, okay, say nice things in the podcast platform, rate us, give us the stars. 5-star, buddy.
Yes, absolutely. We need the 5 stars.
Travis, so much has been happening. This next block. I mean, I want to talk about this Ankara summit that's happening right now as we speak, which is like our Tay-Tay wedding.
Yes.
But it is.
And we were not invited also, similarly to the Tay-Tay wedding.
I lost my RSVP card, but I mean, we're going to talk about that. We've also got news from Maine. We've got Supreme Court news that happened over the break. We've got news from Europe, news from the UK. We've got news from Italy. It's just news from everywhere this week, and of course, JD Vance.
Of course,
at the end. I loved our JD Vance compilation.
Thank you. And I know you don't read the comments, Seena, but I was comforted by the fact that so many people said this was too much JD Vance. This is like, that's why we put Baby in the corner. We do put Boss Baby specifically, because he looks like Boss Baby grew up. We put Baby in the corner on this show. So that's where he belongs. But thanks to everyone who listened. It's crazy how much he sucks and how much he has sucked over the last year, Seena.
We may not get Joe Rogan numbers, but our core audience has such a high tolerance for bad news.
Right, yes. And pain, which is why we are the #1 foreign policy podcast in the manosphere.
We appreciate you. All the women listeners, that's probably why, because we have so many women listeners that listen to our show. The Femmes, thank you.
And we have more female listeners than Usha Vance's podcast. So another win for us. Even if America's losing in the World Cup, Seena, we are still winning in the manosphere podcast space.
Was that game not awful or what? That was an awful game. I'm not a soccer guy. Why don't you tell me? That was awful, right?
Oh, it was brutal. It was, luckily I was watching it here in Ohio with my friends who are Cleveland sports fans, so they were very used to it. They basically were like, yeah, this seems about right. But to see the United States soccer team go out exactly the way a Cleveland sports team would go out was pretty deflating for sure. I thought we had a good team, but this is the thing. It's Belgium. This is a European game. At the end of the day, this is the point in the World Cup where the pretenders and the wannabes go home and the real thing continues to move on. I mean, I just watched a crazy game as of this recording today where Argentina, I don't want to give any spoilers, but Lionel Messi truly is the GOAT when it comes to soccer. Argentina played out of their minds to beat Egypt. England, Mexico, I mean, this is where soccer gets really good. So
I was stuck on a flight on the tarmac, and everyone had their phones out trying to watch the game, the England-Mexico game.
So
and it
insane.
Was so insane. Such a fun game to watch. And I noticed that the ref in that was given a lot of attitude. I don't know if you noticed that in that game.
Yes, this is what's going to happen. You should have seen, I mean, the ref in the Egypt-Argentina game had to give a red card to some assistant coach on Egypt's team. I mean, it got so heated. But again, this is what's fun about it. So I will hang up this United States jersey for another 4 years, and I'm just going to enjoy the rest of the World Cup.
But Travis, listen, the England-Mexico game, I was noticing, I was like, this ref is like sassing hard. He was giving a lot of attitude, right?
You got to sass.
And you know what? It had Bubba vibes. And I was looking at the game, and then after the game, my brother texts me, and he says, how about that Iranian-Australian ref? And I was like, of course he's Persian! Let's go, baby!
That's great. Iran gets their revenge one way or another.
He was like looking at these guys like, no, get the fuck out of here. Let's go. Keep it moving.
Wow.
Let's go.
Wow. There's gonna be a fee on that yellow card next time.
Yeah, exactly. No. Yeah, it's a management fee, not
a
toll.
Right. Environmental fee.
Environmental protection fee. But it's so sad. Donald Trump got involved, and the United States team not only lost, but lost in just awful fashion.
Keep that man away from sports, please.
Keep him away from most things, but we don't have a choice.
I mean, he ruins golf. He ruined the Knicks. The only game the Knicks lost was when he was there. I mean, yeah, everyone has harped on the fact that Donald Trump stuck his big fat orange nose into a red card situation, which I would argue, had no idea about how it worked or anything, but he seemed to want to take credit for it.
In his speech, he was just like, I'm really good at sports. I'm a very good athlete. I don't know much about soccer, and I don't know much about the red cards and how they work.
Right. Yep. He's taken away green cards, and now he's taken away red cards. But he doesn't know anything about any of it, does he?
But I'll tell you something we do know, is that this NATO summit in Ankara is going to be wild.
That's right. And that's why I feel good about Belgium winning, because Belgium is where the world focuses their attention when it wants to get along.
Yes. Here we go. Well, Travis, right now what's happening in Ankara, the NATO allies are meeting, and it comes on the heels of Putin sending a barrage of missiles to Kiev. Now, we've talked a lot about, we haven't talked about Ukraine in a minute, but when we've talked about the difference between attacking different parts of Ukraine versus Kiev, and when he does, that's a big deal. You attack the capital. Yeah. And Ukraine, with the drone capability, they sent a drone 2,500 kilometers inside of Russia to Siberia, which for me still sounds like a fictional place, but it is a real place. And they bombed Russia's biggest oil refinery. So that, of course, now, 3 days later, NATO is meeting. Trump beforehand, instead of calling NATO, which is what a normal president would do, and be like, what should we do, guys? Let's talk about it. We should all be talking as one. He's calling Zelensky. He's calling Putin. And apparently he had like a more than an hour conversation with Putin. So we're going to talk about what the state of affairs are with Ukraine, how Ukraine's actually doing better, even though this recent barrage in Kiev was really bad, but Russia is losing thousands of soldiers every month. So let's dig into what is happening with the Ukraine war.
I would just point out before you get started that if Trump is as bad as interfering with soccer games as he is with foreign policy, this is not going to go well.
This is not. I think he's. You know what? I don't know. He's worse. How bad? We're grading levels of bad here, and that's always difficult to do.
That's how low the bar is. All right, let's see what he's got.
I can't even see it. So a lot of times we see in the news that Ukraine has shot down a lot of these drones, which by the way are Iranian-designed drones that are coming via Russia. But the problem is they could shoot down the drones themselves, but it's the ballistic missiles that they have a real problem with. And the only way they can shoot down these ballistic missiles is using these Patriot batteries, the PAC-3s, those air defense systems. And those only come from us. And so the Center for Strategic International Studies says that Ukraine is in a total shortage of these PAC-3 Patriots. Okay, so that is what we're dealing with right now. The timing, though, in every relationship, actions are a form of communication, Travis. Okay?
Okay.
And so instead of saying something, Putin is speaking with missiles. And he's doing it, and he knows this is on the calendar. The NATO summit's on the calendar. He knows what he's doing. He's doing it on purpose because he's trying to influence what's going to happen at this summit. And so obviously, Russia's not going to be there. Ukraine's not going to be there because Ukraine's not in NATO. So Russia is terrified about what NATO is planning to do. But Trump leans towards Russia, and both of them are trying to figure out what to do about this war, how to get it settled. Trump really wants to get rid of this war so he can spike the football and dunk and everything like that. Apparently, Travis, Putin and Trump spoke for an hour and 25 minutes on Saturday.
Ugh. I don't know who was doing more of the talking and who's doing more of the listening, but I'm terrified to find out.
A lot of heavy breathing there. A Kremlin advisor called it, quote, businesslike and highly constructive, which I don't know. Can we believe that? Sure. Meanwhile, Witkoff and Kushner are ready to go to Moscow to try to do a resolution. And again, all this is happening without NATO. It's totally separate than NATO. So they're meeting today, but it's not with Witkoff and Kushner, who are going to be making a deal, presumably, with Russia on behalf of Zelensky and NATO at the end of the day. Something else also happened. Putin, in his information warfare, said that he captured this city. Let me see if I can pronounce it. Kostyantykivka. Nope, didn't do it. I can guarantee that.
It sounds right to me. I wouldn't know.
I got it. But Putin said he captured this city. And Zelensky, former comedian. I guess he's still a comedian. You never stop, right?
He's catching it.
He said, if he captured that city, then surely Putin would have no problem meeting me there. That's a quote from Zelensky.
Oh, here we go.
So the thing here is that Putin, he can't win the ground war anymore. And we'll talk about that why in a minute.
That's crazy.
But he does have two levers he can pull. The information war, which is what I just said. Every action is a form of communication, which is sending rockets to the capital city of Ukraine days before a NATO summit. And then, of course, diplomacy. Being on with Trumpy on a Saturday for an hour and 25. Hey, babe.
Hey, bestie.
Hey, babe. Hey, bestie. Problem is, he can't win the ground war because Ukraine has been able to go 2,500 kilometers into Russian territory. That's 2,500 from their own border, okay? And Ukrainian Special Operations flew a drone all the way there, and this is roughly the distance from New York City to Denver.
Whoa, that's far.
We're not talking like just being on Route 80, and it's a straight shot. This drone has to avoid air defenses.
Wow.
It goes and it bombs the Omsk refinery in western Siberia. Why does that matter? Why does that specific one matter? Because it's the last one of Russia's 11 largest gasoline producers.
Whoa.
And Ukraine hasn't hit that one yet. That's the last one. This refinery does 21 to 22 million metric tons of crude oil per year. That's 10% of Russia's refining capacity.
Wow.
Isn't that nuts?
That is crazy. I mean, in between Zelensky calling out Putin's bluff with a joke and then also bombing Russia's last oil refinery, it reminds me of my favorite YouTube video, Comedian Owns Dictator. So fun. I love that video.
But listen, Putin, when Putin attacks Kiev, he's killed, I think, almost two dozen people in Kiev. But again, back to this ground war. Since February 2022, CSIS had a great report on this that just came out a few days ago. Said 1.4 million battlefield casualties for Russia.
What?
And what do we mean by casualties? That's deaths, missing, or wounded. Of that, 450,000 are presumed to be dead.
Oh my gosh.
That is roughly the population of Miami.
Oof, that is absolutely nuts.
I saw that. I was like, wait a minute. Wait. First of all, I didn't know they counted casualties in this way. I thought that was just always dead people, but it's great. I'm learning stuff all the time. But 1.4 million wounded, missing, or dead is crazy.
That's crazy. That's like World War I, World War II battle numbers. I mean, but this was a war of choice. This wasn't the Germans knocking on Russia's door. This was Putin going into a territory, into a war that I guess he thought he was going to win.
He thought he was going to handle this in a weekend.
Right.
Russia's losing 30 to 34,000 soldiers a month while only recruiting 27,000. So you could do the rough math there that your net profit on human beings is negative. Okay.
Yes.
You can't win a ground war if you are losing the humans that are doing the ground war.
Yes, you are operating on a deficit, sir. Yes.
I just feel, honestly, I feel for the people of Russia that are just like standing there waiting to just, I don't know, get conscripted into a war that is just off. It's like they're being sent to death. It's terrible.
Yeah, and it's just, they can't do anything about it, right? Because Putin runs everything with an iron fist.
Russia attacking, like Putin attacking Kiev is like such the mark of a weak person,
right?
A person in a very weak position because they're trying to do the most possible damage with the least amount of force. But again, you can't take territory, and Russia's lost territory since the spring. And so this is the worry: is Trump going to come in and say, "Okay, freeze the battle lines"? Russia, you get what you've won. Ukraine, you get to like stop. But then like you lose a little bit. That's not going to be good for Ukraine at all because it still gives a win basically to Russia. So as we go into this NATO summit, the big thing that Zelensky is asking for is air support, defense against these ballistic missiles.
Right.
The tailwind of it is that a lot of these countries are buying Ukraine's drone, like technology, that are actual drones, that are buying their expertise. This thing, it's kind of like the asymmetric war that happened with the United States and Israel and Iran. Iran came out much more powerful than they went into this. The same thing's happening to Ukraine when a smaller country is able to defend itself from an aggressor. And like we live in a different time right now where like, you can be a giant power and your traditional military campaign is getting cooked by, what was it, $6,000 drones that are this Hornet drone. And you know what that does? That's those, it's just shredding dudes.
Wow.
And so who wants to,
This is a bad time to start a war, I guess.
Yeah, very bad time to start a war.
Is there ever a good time, though? I mean, even worse now, I guess.
You would think. But I think we're also in a time of an inflection point of like how wars are even done. Yeah. All wars are going to be really problematic. Like it does not pay. I think it was like for Iran, it was like 13,000 airstrikes that happened. Yeah. And it's like, what do you even mean? What is that? Right. What is that? That number is absurd.
Right. We've covered both Iran and Ukraine's defenses in these various conflicts. I guess they're not completely wars. They're military excursions. But yeah, it's all drone defense, drone offense. And then don't forget, I still think Iran, with their 1955 Bombardier, was completely off the radar because the technology now doesn't even consider planes that old to be on the radar. I mean, what a time.
We're in, this timeline is so strange. And so I want everyone to just kind of pay a little bit of attention to what comes out of this NATO summit, because this will really dictate how the rest of the war goes, because NATO could kind of like coalesce a little bit more and try to flex on the United States. But it just feels like things are so separate right now. And the United States position is of a position of weakness, but at the same time, we're still the biggest military in the world. So you have this kind of like contrast and this conflict of like, okay, well, yeah, we lost this thing with Iran, but we still have all the weapons, basically. We still are the biggest ones. So you can't like push on the United States as much as you would maybe another country. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, and especially like Trump would always say like things about who's holding the cards in each situation.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, who as the new era, as you pointed out, of this conflict, and because we're coming out of the Iranian conflict, who's got the cards and who's got the upper hand as we go into this NATO summit?
I mean, Ukraine technically has the upper hand, but who cares when Trump is on the phone for 90 minutes with Putin?
Right.
It's such a, it's like, you know.
I mean, in terms of cards, he's looking at a red card. Is like, I don't know what it means, but I don't like it. And he's calling the shots somehow.
He's calling the shots. All right. So I just wanted to like, you know, we haven't talked about Ukraine in a minute. I wanted to give people an update. It's sad that these people have died in Kiev, but Ukrainians are winning. For all on paper and in all intents and purposes, they're winning. But the question is, will that even matter? And my hope is that from NATO, like the European countries, will support Ukraine a little bit more. Let's see. My hope. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's all in their doorstep. I mean, in a way, we've always covered how Trump is always calling for NATO to put more money into their own defense, right?
Yeah.
And from their own continent. And I believe Germany's the one that's been stepping up to do that in the meantime. So, he could go there and say, look, we'll keep helping you, but you have to kind of take maybe the lead on this. And if that's the case, I mean, if Putin's already on the back foot, maybe this is the beginning of the end. As Winston Churchill used to say, it's not the beginning of the beginning. It's not also the end, but it is the beginning of the end.
Well, that's the end of this segment, and I think that is beautiful.
Oh, well, there you go. It's the end of the end for this.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, wow, it's like around the horn. We're going to talk about a bunch of crazy news that are happening. I'm going to eat a lot of crow about a one type of political donation I've made. This is the Ford Report. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Ford Report. I'm Seena Ghaznavi, Travis Irvine in the virtual studio. Oh my God, Travis.
What happened? Are you having an aneurysm? What's going on?
Oh man, I've fucked up. I should have never trusted anyone that went to a prep school.
All right. Well, let's calm down. Are you talking about something that's happening across the sea, or are you talking about something that's happening a little bit closer to home? Because Lord knows there's a lot of news in all of those places.
There's something that's happened on the other side of our own country, a particular Senate candidate that would have influenced our foreign policy, I believe, in a good way. But now we've also found out Graham Plattner is a total piece of shit.
Yikes. Yes, I remember us talking favorably about his campaign strategy, not necessarily about him, the person, but when our friend Trey Crowder was on the show, we did think that progressive candidates, like presumably Graham Plattner is presenting himself to be, we thought that they had a good message and that immigrants aren't the problem, billionaires are the problem. And it seemed to be a winning strategy. But as I think you're about to allude to, some of these progressives that come out of nowhere are not exactly battle tested in the sphere of politics.
Well, also drunk bartenders that force themselves on their girlfriends are also terrible. That's also a problem. If this Graham Plattner just came, if you haven't heard, which you undoubtedly have heard by now, Graham Plattner, I don't know if he will even be running in this race still by the time this episode drops. But yesterday, it came out that a woman that he had been dating, I think this is like years ago now, 5 years ago, I believe. I'm sorry if I don't have the numbers right there. I've just been furious about it. There was just a few things that came out. He assaulted her one night, forced himself on her. She's come out. She's done Jake Tapper. She's doing other interviews. Here's the one piece of evidence that I saw. And when I read it, I was like, this is a wrap. She released the notes that her therapist took after the assault took place.
Oof.
And as a lawyer, when you basically take notes or do something to record your recollection or your experience very shortly after it happened, that has a lot of weight. And especially if that is in a confidential setting where there's no, inclination that anyone else would ever see these notes ever, and that's a wrap. You're cooked.
And I think that's
a wrap, buddy.
I mean, because you're absolutely right. These are horrific allegations, and I think my point is that this guy came out of nowhere and is untested. And usually, when you have candidates who have run for city council, have run for anything, when you're just coming out of nowhere, you don't know what you're getting, And I think, obviously, I think he has until either July 13th or August 13th to do the right thing and just drop out and stop being a distraction. So the Democrat powers that be in Maine can replace him on the ballot. I mean, I do wonder what this does in the broader sense, Seena, of progressive candidates. I mean, this was the only reason I knew about Graham Plattner was because of Bernie Sanders, because he had endorsed him, and the Graham Plattner videos were popping up in my feed because I like Bernie stuff. And I do wonder, I mean, already, you're going to have corporate, moderate, establishment Democrats using this Graham Plattner stuff against any Democrat candidate who's maybe too progressive or too left for them. And the Republicans are going to start using this in races, not just in this Senate race, but in like every single race, competitive race all around the country.
Just because it's in my not in my interest, and this is a dumb thing to do, but I gave money to this guy a year ago.
Right.
I donated to the campaign. And I'm furious. I never give money to candidates. Very rarely. And this is infuriating. And then even after that, I saw of course, the Nazi tattoo. And I believed him when he said he went through multiple rounds of, government clearances, and they passed. And when I saw the tattoo image, I didn't know that was a Nazi symbol. I'm not well versed enough in that stuff.
Sure.
It wasn't a swastika. It was a big skull and crossbones, which I guess, now that I look about it, was that the one in Indiana Jones? I think that's the one, right? I don't know. But then the thing came out where he was like philandering or something, and his wife came out and was just like, he's good, I trust him. And she did the video, and I trusted her. I don't know if I'm naive or whatever it is. I believe in this message. I believe in the movement to try to restructure society so that it works for working people more than it is today, so that people are not left to be bankrupt from a healthcare bill, so that we don't just have policies where rooms full of tax professionals are helping billionaires keep more money, or where we just depend on the charity of millionaires and billionaires to help the people that are most, are suffering the most. Like, we live in a country where we should be able to pull everybody up. We should be able to pull the people that are struggling most above a point where they don't have to suffer so much. And I thought this guy had the right perspective. Honestly, the biggest flag for me was that he went to a prep school, and I ignored that. Honest to God. That was more than the Nazi tattoo. I was like, he did go to a prep school. I can't stand these kids. All the ones I met are douchebags.
Yeah.
and I was like, no, this is what I want my candidate to be saying and standing for. And he responded, and I saw a lot of his speeches, a lot of them when he was talking to people, extemporaneously. I was like, good. And then this. And then here's the other thing I want to ask you, Travis. Sorry, I'm ranting a little bit here because I'm emotional about this.
Right.
If we were Republicans, we'd be here saying, maybe this guy should run for president.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to say, his numbers are going to go up.
Baby!
With the Joe Rogan crowd. Yeah, of course. Trump supporters are like, wait a minute, can he run as a GOP? Can he primary Susan Collins? He cannot. No, he cannot do that. Look, I feel for you. I've spent money, maybe not on dumb candidates, but certainly on dumb things before, and that's never fun. But look, you can still like the progressive policies and politics without liking the person. You can like the message without having a completely flawed messenger, right? And again, I think on the progressive side, we're a little bit spoiled sometimes. Not saying that I'm firmly on the progressive side or any which side. I feel more and more independent every day. But I mean, Bernie's like pristine in my eyes, right? There's that whole thing of anything that's wrong in America, you can find Bernie Sanders in a video from 40 years ago warning about it, right? I mean, he's always stood for exactly what he stood for. And then you have folks like Mamdani coming through and AOC. I mean, AOC was an unheard of candidate who I think obviously has proven herself over and over again. But Plattner he was untested. This is what happens. And by untested, I mean, you always vet the candidate. You gotta, I mean, especially a race this huge. Senate, one of the most competitive Senate races in the country. Oh boy, there's some people who are more influential than us, Seena, within the Democrat Party in Maine and nationally, who've got to do some soul searching. They got to admit that they got some egg on their face here. Again, all I heard was the date of the 13th. I don't know if that's July or August, but he has got to do the right thing and get the hell out of there, get out of that race so they can replace him with literally anyone else in Maine who has a pulse and is a Democrat and is not a completely flawed piece of shit.
Because Susan Collins is about to not have a pulse, and she's still going to vote to take people's health care away.
It's bonkers. She's one of the most. I mean, she's a flawed candidate, but she's a flawed senator, and she's just completely. I mean, the Democrats could win this race. It's crazy that she's even still in there. So that's why it's frustrating on a whole nother level. In addition to the fact that, again, it's like you said, you put money towards this guy, Bernie put political capital towards this guy, and he just needs to go away, get into therapy, maybe go to jail, but he definitely should not go to oyster farming anymore.
I think the other thing is that he was not vetted by the people that were supposed to vet him. I saw an interview from the Wall Street Journal with, I guess, one of the campaign people, and they were asking him questions about this and that, and they were like, what about the Nazi tattoo? Did you guys? And he's like, well, I didn't really. The answers, I mean, maybe I'm Monday morning quarterbacking this thing, but the answers were insane. And again, I felt so naive to like, man, I'm seeing stuff on my feed. He's saying the things that I want, and I'm like, I'm into it. You know, I feel like I'm more critical about the nuances of geopolitics than I am a Senate race in Maine, which technically has more of an impact on my life than anything happening with like the Houthi rebels. You know what I mean? It's like, it's really frustrating, Travis.
At this point, we should run a Houthi rebel against Susan Collins, and they would win.
Just be 20 of them together speaking like a Greek choir.
Just stacked on top of each other in a trench coat.
with rocket launchers.
I'll donate to that candidate. He's got a fun trench coat.
All right, but what else happened over break, Travis? Over the July 4th break? The Supreme Court.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, and I just want to touch on this. We're going to get some of our favorite experts in to talk more about this. But, being here in Ohio, I'm sure you are aware, the Supreme Court ruled that the Trump administration and the Department of Homeland Security could end the temporary protected status of Haitian and Syrian immigrants, of which there are 6,000 from Syria and over 300,000 from Haiti in the United States. As we've covered on the show, Seena, temporary protected status is a designation for immigrants to come here if their nation is war-torn, if there's a giant environmental disaster. In the case of Haiti, it has been both, really, since 2010. And that status is temporary, yes, and it's in the name, but it can be renewed until the nation is safe for them to return to. This is a policy, again, as we've said on this show, it's been around since 1990. It was signed into law by Republican President George H.W. Bush, and the Supreme Court ruled that arbitrarily the Trump administration could just end TPS. And obviously this went to the Supreme Court because Haitian immigrants rightfully went to their lawyers and said, this seems racially based, this decision. There's no actual, they didn't go through the actual certifications that Congress put into law as to why you end TPS. But at least here in Ohio, we have 30,000 Haitian immigrants. You may remember a little thing called Springfield, Ohio from the 2024 presidential race. That city alone has anywhere from 10 to 15,000 Haitian immigrants, and they're all working there. Ugh. And so if they lose this TPS, which apparently is scheduled to happen as early as July 10th, unless the courts hold it off until the end of July. I mean, either way, you're talking about people who've been here for well more than a decade who are about to lose their status of legally being here within a month. And they played by the rules that they were given, and then the rules just changed, just like that. And the Supreme Court said it's all copacetic, that the Trump administration and the DHS has every right to do this. Whether or not it's by the book, it doesn't matter because the Republicans are in charge of the book right now.
Of everything. Everything. And still they're not getting anything done, by the way.
And it really affects somewhere like Ohio, where even a Republican governor went on CNN, was like, this is bad for Ohio. This is bad for the economy in Springfield, Ohio. These people are contributing, and now they have to figure out some type of plan. I mean, they're not going to go to Haiti. I don't know how much we've covered Haiti on this show for the last year and a half since I come on, but it ain't great. It's run 90% of it's like run by gangs right now. It's at a level 4 do not fly to, and you can't even really fly over. Some planes can't even get as low as 10,000 feet because they start getting shot at. So
it's crazy.
It's absolutely nuts that the Supreme Court allowed this, but then also, and this is why I'm excited to talk to our Supreme Court experts in the weeks ahead. The Supreme Court also said that immigrant children who are born here are protected by the 14th Amendment. And so they are allowed to be here. Yeah. So we have a situation now, just to put this, and everyone's like, well, that's a win. because it rebukes Trump's. He was trying to get rid of the idea that an illegal immigrant can come here, have a baby, and then that child is not an actual American citizen. The Supreme Court ruled it is an American citizen, but in practicality, what this means now, Seena, is that a parent from Haiti who's here on TPS, who had a baby here, has to leave, and the baby stays. I mean, this is just creating a whole mess, not just for the Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, but for 300,000 others all across the nation.
Well, that was also a 6-3 decision.
Yeah.
And
Republicans versus Democrats, liberals versus conservatives. Yeah.
And that was what's crazy is that it should have been 9-0 for that 14th Amendment case, and it wasn't.
Oh, sure. Yes, that one. Yes. The TPS was 6-3, and I believe the 14th Amendment one was actually 5-4. Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts voted with the liberal justices on that one. Amy Coney Barrett actually wrote the opinion and noted that the 14th Amendment does apply.
Yeah, and it was insane. That is going to be another huge problem. There was also another presidential power case that came out where Trump has a lot more, or the executive rather, because it's going to be Trump, not forever, hopefully. But they've expanded the executive power so that he can fire anyone from federal agencies.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there's some bonkers
So the
decisions.
independence of that is gone. Transgender athletes, they combined cases from West Virginia and Idaho, and the court ruled that states are allowed to enforce laws banning transgender athletes from participating in girls' and women's sports. So you have to play with the sex that you were born with, which is insane to me. Again, I think that my problem with the trans stuff here is that we talk so much about sports, but trans suicide rates are like that of veterans that come back from war zones.
Yeah,
and
it's
so
very heartbreaking, yeah.
I don't want to talk about sports until we talk about kids killing themselves. So that's where I net out on that.
Which is interesting because I did read about the transgender athletes decision. I mean, again, in Ohio, we have 6 transgender athletes that just wanted to play sports with their friends in high school out of hundreds of thousands of high school athletes. And it is interesting because in that decision, I think Brett Kavanaugh wrote that one. They also put a caveat that these kids are still kids and we shouldn't, villainize them either way. But then it's also like, by the way, you can't play.
Yeah, we're still going to dunk on you in this decision.
Yeah, it's classic Supreme Court stuff.
Now, they struck down the limits on how much national political party committees can spend in coordination with individual candidates, which was the only line that we had with the post-Citizens United stuff, was that the super PAC shouldn't be coordinating with the individual candidate. And then that never happened, but that was like, it was fake. We knew it was happening.
Right.
But now the Supreme Court is like, don't worry about it. Just send an email. It's fine.
Or a signal chat, yeah.
Don't signal chat. Don't even bother.
Okay.
Public text. You know what I mean? Just like, whatever you want to do. So lots of stuff in the Supreme Court. We're going to try to have some Supreme Court experts come on to see how that all is going to net out. Another case that came out, not a case, but another situation out of the UK. Well, first of all, Andy Burnham is going to probably take over for Keir Starmer. That's a huge deal. I think that's going to be funny because that guy was a popular mayor, and now he's going to jump into this thing. Let's see how he does. But the other side of the coin, Nigel Farage has resigned. Wow. He has resigned.
Of course.
The mini British Trump has resigned.
Okay, first of all, I thought Boris Johnson was the British Trump because he had the hair. He had the hair and everything.
No, he's way funnier.
He's way funnier, yeah. But Nigel Farage, I mean, this is what the guy does. He got Brexit across the board, and then he just left. And then it's like, this is again. He
leave it to
the pot and then doesn't stick around to eat the soup.
What are the UK listeners? Maybe you tell us who's more Trumpian, Farage or Boris Johnson. So you guys tell us.
Well, that's the thing, right? One's politics is more Trumpian,
right?
Isolationist, and then the other one is just physically with the hair more Trumpian. So,
well, more of a performer, right? I think Boris. He was.
Yeah. Nigel Farage is more. I mean, this is why Nigel Farage, more like Nigel Mirage.
Oh,
bye bye. He's gone. He's bye bye now. So
what's amazing is that he did not disclose not $1, not $10, not even $1 million. He did not disclose 6.7 million, which is 5 million pounds of money that he got from a Thailand-based cryptocurrency investor, Christopher Harborn.
Wow. And imagine that in England where that still matters, where you have to resign for that. Isn't that crazy?
I thought this guy was going to be like Teflon in that way, where he just said he could say all the most gruesome racist stuff you could, but then I guess they're cracking down on this stuff. UK is also cracking down on like foreign investment into political campaigns as well. All the stuff that, I guess you can't be a foreigner and donate to political campaigns, but that still happens. Check in on Fraudsters that's coming out next week when we talk about Eric Adams and how the Turkish government was able to get campaign funds into his race as well.
Incredible. Yeah. Well, there's a will, there's a way,
Exactly. So that was like insane that's happened there. More to come there. He potentially, because the Reform Party there was really starting to gain ground, he could have been prime minister at some point.
Yeah, well, I mean, or if he stuck around. Again, I feel what this guy does is he gets something ridiculous done that disrupts everything, and then he literally just leaves. And then he goes and does podcasts for like 2 years. And then he pops back up again when he needs to get some other disrupting policy through.
He's going to make a lot more money now that he's out of there. Okay, now if we go over to France, Marine Le Pen...
the French Nigel Farage.
And she had been declared guilty of embezzlement, but they cleared her to run for office again, but that she must wear an ankle monitor.
That's
In
incredible.
France, electronic home detention prohibits a person from leaving their home or another designated location except during the hours authorized by the judge.
Wow. All right, so she's going to get... what, her family's vote?
I don't know. She's going to be able to run, but they reduced her ban on elected office from 5 years to 45 months, which is, I guess, just under 4 years. And then 2/3 of that is suspended. So this is like a couple years she's going to be able to run. So her prison sentence has gone down from 4 years to 3, 2 of which are suspended. She's out.
She's basically out. That's crazy, because you would think Marie Le Pen would be locked up in Le Pen. Thank you so much.
So they're going to decide if she has to continue wearing this electronic monitor. Do we need to monitor her? She's going to be on social media all the time saying like immigrants are bad. So I think we're going to know where she is. But yeah. I would like her to have an ankle monitor. I think that'd be pretty funny.
Yes, I agree. And give one to Nigel Farage while you're at it too. I'd like to know. He's probably going to go to Thailand at some point. Meet up with his benefactor.
She is clearly able to run for president now. Oh my God. This is crazy. Dude, this timeline is weird that we are living in right now. And then, oh my God. We've got a couple other stories here. Hamas has dissolved the government in Gaza that they had.
Yeah.
So part of the 20-point peace plan or whatever the phased plan was that Hamas would dissolve their government and a technocratic government with the Palestinian Authority would also come in and administer Gaza. So that's a big deal. Israel, of course, calls it a stunt. Hamas is still operating, to be clear, and they are not eliminated, much like Hezbollah is not eliminated. This is also Hamas, to a certain extent, is an idea. Like resistance to apartheid is a thing that's probably going to keep happening in Gaza. One Hamas official described it as, quote, a demonstration of the seriousness of these measures and implementation of the agreed arrangements and to facilitate the administrative transition process. So from at least on paper, they want peace and they want an ending to the war. Israel countered that by stating that Hamas's, quote, apparent willingness to make room for a technocratic government is designed to prevent its own disarmament. So that's the big next phase, is that they're supposed to disarm, which is, I don't know. Hamas countered that it would agree to disarm once the transition process was complete and Israel stopped all attacks, which they never do.
No, this doesn't seem very promising. In terms of the 20-point plan, I don't know if this throws a wrench in all of the other points, but this one seems like, I don't know, not a very promising point for me.
Israel just killed 5 people over the weekend in Gaza. So what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen here, but that is like a big update from what's happening. Because, like, for all intents and purposes, you do need a government to run things, okay? Even if your country, or the place that you live, rather, is leveled. So more to come there. Wow, that was a lot. Did we get through that? That was crazy.
Yes, sir. From Maine to Gaza to England and back again. What a meaty, beefy B block.
Okay, so let's take a quick break. And by the way, love that you shaved. Love that you shaved. The heat wave got to you.
Thank you for noticing. Yes, it was entirely too hot. My God.
Just gotta have a heater near you at all times. So
that's how you do it. No, look, I get it. I'm back in Ohio, and the Ohio Tola jokes were really rolling until they weren't. And that came when the heat wave rolled right in.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, everyone's favorite segment, the JD Vance Corner. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Foreign Report. I'm Seena Ghaznavi, Travis Irvine. Quick correction, but also you were still right. On the 14th Amendment case, it was 6-3 overall, but 5-4 on the constitutionality of it. Brett Kavanaugh did not agree or did not want to rule in favor or talk about the constitutionality of the 14th Amendment holding up in that sense. He thought at a statutory level that the law that they were talking about in question was a violation of immigration law, rather than directly interpreting the 14th Amendment. So he kind of like did a weird end run on that one. Roberts, Kagan, Ketanji Brown Jackson, and Amy Coney Barrett ruled in favor on the merits of the constitutionality. Brett Kavanaugh concurred. That's your 6. And then the classic 3, Gorsuch, Alito, and Thomas were dissenting on that one. All right. Let's keep it rolling with...
Give him a chance, it's JD Vance. No, wait, he sucks.
Club remix, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, club remix indeed. And nothing remixes better than the sounds of corruption. We covered from around the world today, Seena, how so many conservatives in their home countries are getting in quite a lot of trouble for embezzlement or maybe not declaring illegal money. But here in America, it's slowly becoming the norm. And JD Vance basically put words to these actions. And he was talking at a conference, being interviewed about whatever. And he dropped this little dime that pretty much went viral, but I want to go ahead and make sure we play it here today. This is JD Vance basically talking about the Nixon administration, which was right with corruption at that time of an unknown amount, right? There had never been such a blatant administration until the Nixon administration. Spiro Agnew, same deal, is vice president. He had to resign. And JD Vance spoke to that and how it compares to modern times. Let's roll this beautiful bean footage.
As I joked with Robert backstage, if Watergate happened tomorrow, it would be like a 12-hour news story. Like, the idea that it would have taken down a presidency is crazy. And by the way, if you look at the story of how the deep state took down Richard Nixon, it's not all that different from what the same groups of people, the same institutions tried to do to Donald Trump in the first Trump administration. There is a parallel.
Bravo. All right. Yeah. Okay. So there it is. That is that is him speaking at some Nixon, I don't know, praise Nixon. That's where we are now, Seena. Nixon's praiseworthy again.
But like Watergate's not a big deal?
Yeah, I mean, there's three elements to this clip, and that's why it's really the only thing we got to play this week for the JD Corner. Number one, he's acknowledging that Watergate would have been a 12-hour news story that it's crazy it took down a president. It was the biggest news of the time. But comparatively to the current Trump administration, which is so brazenly corrupt, where there's 900 corrupt things happening every single day, every single week, that's what JD is saying.
He's kind of telling on himself.
Yes. He's like, we do Watergate every afternoon, right? Like, we wake up and do a Watergate. That's kind of what he's acknowledging, that it's crazy that Watergate took down a president when there's 900 Watergates that should be taking down this president any given week. So yes, he's telling on himself. He's telling on the whole administration. Second, have you heard about this thing that the deep state took down Nixon? Have you heard about this story that JD was talking about?
I thought Nixon took down Nixon because he was so paranoid.
And he recorded himself constantly. Yeah. Yes. And then there were elements of his campaign, and he knew about it, that broke into the Democratic National Committee's office at the Watergate to get dirt on his potential political rivals and opponents. Yes, that is literally what happened in a nutshell. But this is actually pretty fascinating. This is very much a Roger Stone theory he's been pushing out there for decades, and now it seems to have gotten in JD Vance's ear, and that is that Richard Nixon was going to take on the deep state. He had this so-called quote that he said that he knew he wasn't going to let the CIA do to him what they did to Kennedy, right? This is not proven by anyone, but apparently Richard Nixon was going to take down the deep state, so the deep state took down Nixon first. Now, as you just noted, he made it very easy for them to do because he gave them all the info. Here it is. I'm recording every corrupt thing I've ever done. And then, obviously there were the firing of the attorney generals from the Department of Justice. I mean, Nixon was just not just paranoid, but brazenly corrupt, and he got busted. And that's basically what happened. What actually took down Nixon was, in terms of why he had to resign, much like Nigel Farage, was he was going to get impeached, Seena. Republican senators met with him and said, you're going to get impeached in the House. We don't have the votes to protect you in the Senate. You either need to resign or get impeached. So he resigned. That's what took down Nixon, all right? It wasn't the deep state, not a conspiracy theory out of Roger Stone or JD Vance's mouth. So that's the second thing that JD spoke about here. And that third thing was the worst thing he said. Comparing himself to Nixon at all is, it makes me want to vomit. Sounds a lot
like JD, like, ooh, goody.
Yeah, it's me. And it's like, it just makes me want to throw up in my mouth and then spit it out and then eat it again and then throw it up again.
Oh, okay.
Again, the first two things are bad, but when to follow that up with JD being like, Richard Nixon, young senator, wrote a book, was very, going after the deep state. Sounds a lot like me. Just the delusion on this guy. And you know what? Let him have his fun, because I don't think this JD Vance party is going to go much longer. It's certainly not going to go past 2028. So thank you, JD, for the memories.
Thanks,
and
JD.
As we learned last week, sometimes this is the only amount of JD we can take in one week.
Yeah, I know. Thanks for everyone dealing with all the JD. Thanks for dealing with the JD today. And thanks to you for all watching and listening this episode. Make sure you rate us on your podcast platform of choice. Leave a comment. That's nice, or not at all, that Travis will read and report back with. But thank you, Travis, as always. This has been the Foreign Report. We will see you next week.